tonight to Blast from the Past. It's our game show tonight, and I'm your host. And we have some guests up here tonight that are going to tell us what their favorite decade was. And we need audience participation on this. And so, Angelica, her favorite is the 1960s. Abby, her favorite is the 1970s. Tisha, her favorite is the 1980s. And Megan, her favorite is AD 30 to 40. So how many of you are into the 60s? Wow, 4 of you. How many are into the 70s? The 80s? That's my kind of crowd. And then we'll hear from Megan in a little while. So, Angelica, why don't you stand up and tell us what's so great about the 60s? Why is that the best decade?
The 60s. Where do I start? Authentic rock and roll. The Beatles were groovy. It was all about love and peace, not war.
All right. So, we have somebody to come up to help us convince us that the 60s was the best. Jackie's going to come up and show us what it was to be in the 60s. Let's give her a hand as she comes. Let's give that
peace and love, chicks, and dude. You know, we had the grooviest tunes, the finest greens, and most importantly, we had a cause to live for. No government, all love.
Yes. Are you crazy? Your decade had nothing but riots and people killing each other. How is that peaceful?
Yeah, and you guys messed up our youth.
The 60s? Definitely not the best.
Whoa, 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 your vibes are way too heavy for me. I don't dig this scene at all.
Now we're going to hear from Abby about the 70s. Why were the 70s so great?
Well, first of all, we had the Afro, the most legendary beauty and texture, gotta be it. And the disco music, I mean rock and roll, that's all cool. But disco, now that's funky.
We're going to have Isaac come out and show us what was up in the 70s. All right, Isaac. Yeah. Let's give him a hand. Why are the 70s so great, Isaac?
Well, first, the 70s, their music was funky. You could boogie down to it. And the best of it was the hairstyles, the afro. It was groovy.
No. What about the gas crisis? Having to stand in line for hours? What's that about?
And look at that hairstyle, that's rough.
Your decade, the 70s, definitely not the best.
Oh, that's the brother.
All right, and now we have Tish to tell us about the 80s. Yeah.
Okay, let me tell you guys what's the best about the 80s. I mean, Nintendo came out in the 80s. Right? And, okay, your guys' music, yeah, no. I mean, the best music
Tiffany to come up and help us with the 80s.
Oh no.
The 60s, the 70s, gag me with a spoon. The 80s were the best because I was there. Our clothes were rad, our music was fresh, and we didn't put up with no hosers.
Hoser.
Well, first of all, you guys gave us mullets. AIDS came from the 80s. The 80s was definitely not the best decade.
So as we can see, there are obviously problems with every decade, right? There's issues in every single decade. But Megan, she's going to tell us why her decade was the best, 80, 30 to 40. Go ahead.
That's when Jesus came and died
Come
for
on
our
now.
sins.
Amen.
I mean, he brought real peace, real life, and real love. He's the answer that all of these decades have been looking for.
Yeah, so a question for you in the audience participation. How many of you are from the 60s, but you're saved? You've given your life to Jesus now. Give me a shout. How many of you are from the 70s, but you're saved now, and Jesus is saved? Give me a shout. How many from the 80s, you're saved? And Jesus is saved? So the point is tonight about Blaast from the past. You can have, well, yeah, past that, you're all good too. Point tonight, if you're here and you don't know Jesus, I want to tell you something. You may have your favorite decade, you may have an affection for whatever it is that you grew up around in your youth. But I'll tell you what, Jesus Christ came and he died and paid the price, and that's the answer for every decade. So that's the Blaast from the past you need tonight. And that's all we have tonight. Thanks for you for joining us for our show.